Hello, friends, and welcome back to Some Parts Not Included, a podcast where three amputee friends just hang out and chat about life as an amputee. My name is Amanda Marie, and I am a right leg PFFD.
I am. Oh,
whoa!
the Jamies.
The Jamies strike again.
Yeah,
Ladies
Jamie?
first. How rude of me.
I'm Jamie, and I'm a right arm below the elbow amputee.
And I am James, a left arm below the elbow amputee. Welcome.
So we have known each other forever, and we grew up through, an amputee organization that bonded us together. And I would like to say that we always had a special connection immediately with each other. It was just like an unspoken bond that we got to grow up with together, and it was amazing. And another aspect of that, though, is the relationship we end up having with our parents, because they spend a lot of time with us, or that's my interpretation maybe as to it. But specifically my mom, like, she spent a lot of time going to appointments and to different seminars and events, and I think it creates a very unique bond with the child. So that's what we want to talk about today. So I'm not going to go first.
Good to know. It is not me who is going to go first, says Amanda.
I don't want to end up getting emotional and monopolizing because I'm the freshie of the group of it. So I will let maybe Jamie, you go first, since you
for sure.
Who's your topic?
And full disclosure, I may also get emotional, just because unfortunately my mom is no longer with us. So it like talking about it might bring up a little bit of emotions and stuff like that. But my parents were actually really amazing. They had like their own way of dealing with it. My mom always said that that she like fought this internal battle about the questions that I had from her, or when I was struggling and things like that. She wouldn't show it on the surface, but she would go, by her, like on her own or by herself, and actually like cry for me and things like that, which is super cute. But I think that that's generally how a lot of parents feel, right? Is that they try their best to give as much as they possibly can to their child. But again, I know that some situations hurt quite a bit. Look, growing up with my amputation, as many may know, and as you guys definitely know, we have so many appointments all the time. And and often, like, I grew up in a very small town. And so when I had appointments, I would have to go multiple hours away. We would have to drive multiple hours away, and then we would have to go to the appointments and things like that. And I grew up in a pretty low income family as well. So me being able to leave my hometown was also an adventure in itself. So we always made it like a really fun day with whatever parent I would go with. So it wasn't always my mom that I went to appointments with. It was sometimes my dad too. And so that was always really fun, because they would always make it a fun day and like a fun experience. And we would get to go, like, I would get to go to like McDonald's, which I never got to do, or I would get to go and just see the city, basically, because I grew up very far from the city. Again, we were low income, so didn't really get to go out very much. So that was always really fun. I think to have that. Did you guys have like a dedicated parent to like go to these appointments with you, or like how did that go for you guys? James?
Amanda? James? No, it was just whoever was available to take me to the appointment. But it wasn't one parent or the other, but I know that I used to love going to them. And my mom same thing. My mom and dad always make it like a day, and we go out. And little do I know, like all these years later, when you look back, it's like, it's very busy. Where I grew up, we had to drive, and I did a lot of my appointments in Toronto, as you probably did too, Jamie. And so when you got to drive all the way to the Toronto and then back, it takes the day. And so it's a huge dedication from the parent to be able to do that. So there wasn't one parent or the other that was dedicated, sort of whoever had the time. I remember doing a lot of it with my dad, because my dad would work shift work, whereas my mom would always work full time during the day. So I think they would schedule a lot of the appointments for when my dad was on night shift, so he had the day free. And I remember we would go to Hugh McMillan Center in Toronto, and I would love it. And all the time, I remember my dad he'd always want to try and get back before the rush hour, get back before, noon or whatever. But I was always so excited when they're like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to stay for a couple hours, and you're gonna have to come back in, and we gotta make some adjustments to the socket," because that meant that I got to stay there for lunch and I got to go to the cafeteria, which I like.
Yes,
that was like the
me too,
highlight
yeah.
of my day. It was like, yeah, we get to have lunch out today. My dad's like, yeah, damn, I gotta work in like 3 hours. I'm like, I hope I can get back on time. But that's just the dedication that parents. Some people don't realize that when you have an amputee child, there's a lot of extra things that come along with that, appointments. And I would say another huge thing that my parents did, and all of our parents did, I know, is connected us with other amputees as kids, right? Like we've talked on this podcast before how important community is, and other amputees, and meeting other amputees and amputee kids and parents and their parents. So that was another huge thing that all three of our parents realized. And it's not, I've met many amputees that it's not been the same. They're like, oh, I just kind of do my thing, and that's never been, on the top of the list, which is fine, to each their own. But I thought that was huge. And look, that we all met each other as kids and made so many lifelong friends. And how many days did you message each other when we were kids? Like, I'm having a hard day because of this and that. It makes a huge difference. So that alone, all the time that they took to bring us to events and meet other amputees, was big. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Amanda?
Yeah, like I loved hearing everything you both had to say, because I don't think we've actually ever discussed this outside of it. It's just one of those unspoken things we know about each other's parents and each other. My mom was definitely the primary person for taking me to my appointments, because my dad was working full time and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So that was her job. And it was definitely a full-time one. Like you said, the appointments become full-day appointments. And my mom didn't like driving on the highway. So we always had to take transportation, like to and from out of town. And so it would be like you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and not getting home till 11 o'clock at night. And that's a long day with a kid in a big city,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yes, honey, my dog wants to also join in in talking today. So just if you're wondering who's crying in the background, it's my German Shepherd Husky. So yeah, I spent so much time with my mom, and not even just as a kid, but even as an adult. When I was still traveling, my mom, right up until she passed away, until she got sick and couldn't travel with me, she still came to my appointments and she loved it. Like, she still wanted to make a day of it. Yeah, and go shopping. And so yeah, I didn't need to bring her, obviously, at that point. Like, there was sometimes I'd go by myself so that way I could hang out with other friends in town, and I didn't want her to stick around that late. But there was like 9 times out of 10 she was still coming with me. After my car accident, she came because I had like really bad car anxiety. She came to me for all of my appointments after that to help me through that. And she was always such a good distraction in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, there's you spend a lot of time together, and again, she wanted to make the best of the day and not just make it about going to a doctor's appointment that filled up a lot of your time. So yeah, I got to pick where I'd want to go eat. And I was the weird kid that liked Arby's.
I love
So
Arby's, just
okay.
FYI. Even still today, I know it's bad.
Same. Which I knew that, Jamie, because I think you went there when you came
Yeah,
down for your birthday.
when I came to visit you. Yeah, for your birthday.
Yeah. You were
I
like,
love how
where are you
I
gonna
love
go?
how
Like,
leaky the cheese is at Arby's.
the weirdest thing. The funny part is they don't really have much that's vegetarian. So I'm basically going for just like their appetizers. But anyway, I digress. As a kid, I ate meat, and so I loved going to Arby's. And yeah, it was. I have very fond memories of that. And we would go to even. They would have this old theater that had films. I think it was like $2 for a matinee, and so and like you could hear like the in the background of like the
Aw.
film going. It was so awesome. So yeah, we would go like do something like that or walk around the mall, and she might buy me something small. Like Jamie, we were low income. They only had
Mhm.
one income, and so we didn't have a ton of money, but my mom always made it feel like I got to do something fun, and it was an adventure outside of that appointment. So, and furthermore, we would go to seminars in big cities, and man, those were such good times. Like Niagara Falls is probably my favorite city because I have so many memories with my mom there. um, See, now I'm gonna get emotional. But Niagara Falls, that's the place that gets me emotional. Um, yeah, and not just with my mom,
Honeymoon capital of Canada or something.
with my mom. But yeah, and like she even would go on like she hated scary stuff, but I loved going through all the haunted houses, and she didn't do all of them. She didn't do nightmares. I had to get James here to go through
I remember that.
nightmares with me. I wish I knew where that picture was. But yeah, like she braved through so much, and like I just have so many memories. And thankfully, at those seminars, which is such a blessing, so many pictures were taken. So I have all these professional photos with my mom growing up, which now having passed is obviously such a beautiful thing to have, right? Just such a blessing.
Mhm.
Never thought of that,
Absolutely.
but that's true.
Very
You
true.
have years and years of taking a photo together, and then it's a great
Mhm.
it's great to look back on now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad's a farmer, so my mom would always go to those types of things with me, like anything more longer term. My mom would go with me, and so it was always her. And again, like she always would make it fun. Like we always would be able to like get snacks and like and, like hang out, or she would like allow me to go and like just hang out with my friends and things like that. And again, like growing up in like the way that I did, that was a huge deal. That was such a huge deal for me to be able to go do that and to like be
I also
around.
found like my parents were very strict growing up, just because it was the 90s. So parents were much stricter.
Is that a
um,
thing?
I think so personally, but I digress. Um, but I always found that when we would go to these appointments or anything that was affiliated, like that strictness kind of came down a notch. And it was
Yes,
like there was this
it's
It
more
sense of
about
did.
like,
fun.
yeah, like it was like, oh, like all of a sudden your parent became more your friend in that moment, I guess
You
is a
get to
good
eat
way of
junk
saying.
food and stay up a little bit later and go
Absolutely.
Yes.
see
Yeah.
your friends and be a little bit later coming
Order a
back.
pizza and hang
Yeah.
out in the hotel until the wee hours of the night. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, well, and they would know where we were and everything. It's not like they didn't know that, but yeah, and furthermore, I think when you're having that connection with your parents, I don't have any sort of experience really to say otherwise, but I can only fathom, and I think James, you can really speak maybe to this, but or maybe not because you don't have an able-bodied kid yet. But like, yet, I feel there's a very beautiful connection that you have with your kid because you're going through just such a different experience than if your kid was able-bodied. I could be completely wrong. I'm speaking from very little experience other than being the child of someone who had this connection, but it's hard to explain. But I always have thought when I was growing up, I remember being a teenager and people would like kind of badmouth their parents and they'd be like, look to you like, yeah, isn't your mom a bitch? And I'd be like,
No.
no. And I don't ever remember having like those teenage hard times together with her. Like there was
Same.
never any fights or animosity during those transitional stages. I didn't have that. It was purely just like, yeah, sometimes my mom was tough, but she was a mom and she
That's
had a
because
reason
you're a good
for doing it.
child, as opposed to
Maybe.
me.
My
Good point,
my
James.
sister, my sister would always say that I was the favorite child. Like, oh, you're the favorite one. Like you're the one that they do all the things for. Like you're the one that they spend the time with and like stuff like that, which is really funny. Like, like looking back, I'm always like, I'm not the favorite. But now I'm like, maybe.
I always wondered. I was going to ask that question about the siblings, like how the siblings reacted to your relationship with your parents because you got to spend that extra time. Because I know my parents, they used to take my little brother out to like extra things here and there, like a movie or something that everyone else didn't get to go to. It's like, well, we got to spend this time with you doing that. So I know that they tried to equal that with the other siblings. But something funny that I was thinking is that were your parents like how are your parents with like allowing you to do certain things? Like were they more hesitant? Did they want you to like be careful? Because I know um my parents would never, even like to this day, they probably still don't like to see me mowing a lawn. And I
Yes.
feel that that's half because of all the PSAs out there about lawnmower safety and stuff with kids. But when I was a kid, all my friends around 11, 12 years old, they were mowing their lawns. And at that point in time, I was like, yes, like I don't got to mow the lawn. Like I was really happy about it. Like I didn't care at all because they'd make my older brother do it. And I was always like, suckery. Hey, what are you doing today? You got to mow the lawn? But then they would make up for that by making me like clean all the bathrooms or something, like some kind of like kind of work. Like I kind of wish I could have mowed the lawn now, but yeah. But they were always so worried about me mowing the lawn and tripping and falling and like severing another limb. So there were some things that they kind of I feel like they put me
Over.
in a bubble. They held me back
Yeah.
on doing, which in retrospect was probably a good choice.
Yes.
Knowing how reckless I was as a boy too, like I would probably try to run things over with the lawnmower for fun too. Like I was, yeah.
It
I'm not
actually
saying it
had,
was bad.
he wasn't allowed to mow the lawn, had nothing to do with him being an army amputee. It was actually
It was just because of my
reckless ass kid. They're like, no man, we're not giving you dangerous equipment. Not a good idea. You go in the bathroom, you wipe the shitter down, okay?
That was my job. Yeah.
It
You
was a
take
safe
that one good
task.
hand and scrub the toilet with it, son.
Oh
No, they weren't
man.
like that. Actually, I have something sweet to say. Um, my
Aw.
dad always told me this. I feel like I'm giving my dad a lot of shout outs and recognition. My mom was right there along with all of this and amazing as well. Obviously, you both know my mother. But I know my dad always told me the moment that he saw me for the first time as a baby and he saw my little arm or whatever, he was like, right then and there, he vowed to like do whatever he could to, for me to make my life as the best he could, like as possible. I remember he told me that he's like, honestly, when you were very first born and I very first looked at you, like it was like it lit a fire in me to make sure we're the best for you. And it's really a sweet thing. So and I know my mom was feeling the same way. Obviously, she was probably a little bit more more drowsy after giving birth to me. And but I know that she obviously, both my parents are amazing. We're all really lucky to have amazing parents, all of us, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because I know all your parents, and it's crucial to when you have like a disabled child to build them up and give them support, and it's not always easy. It doesn't matter what your disability is. It can be a lot of work. It can be extra activities, but we're all really lucky to have amazing parents. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my parents were kind of the opposite of yours, James. So I grew up on a farm for a lot of my childhood, and my dad is a farmer, still farming now. And when I was growing up, my parents gave me jobs on the farm to do, as you would give any other farm child. and and so there were a lot of jobs that were difficult to do, especially with one arm, like very difficult to do. And so I would attempt to use my arm as an excuse to get out of my chores, to get out of my farm jobs. And my parents wouldn't allow that. They would be like, well, if you wanted to do it, you'd figure out a way. So go and do what you're supposed to do. And so it's really interesting that your parents, James, were like, no, you shouldn't. And my parents were like, I don't care. I don't give a f- get out there and do your job. Like,
Yeah, you know what? And that's something that other parents can, that's a good thing to do. When if you do have an amputee child, don't let that be an excuse to a certain extent. Obviously, like,
yeah, absolutely.
and
There are
you know
obviously
what I
things
mean?
that
Like,
are tough, but
you understand, like, yeah, like
yeah.
common sense kicks in. But
Mhm.
no, I think that that's a good thing to do. It's like, no, you can find a way, you can do it, and that's how you build character, right?
Mhm.
And that's how you learn to do things. Like, I find that with amputees, like, we always have to prove ourselves, so like our determination level is a lot higher. Like, we want to like be able to prove that, no, we can do this. I'll just have to do it this way or that way. And that's the mindset you got to have as an amputee. And with amputee with parenting and amputee,
Amputeeing a
all
parent.
of us amputees amputeeing. Just let
It's
them
an
amputee,
action.
man.
It's a verb.
And now, like, as Amanda mentioned earlier, yes, I've mentioned in past episodes, I am now parenting an amputee child. So my daughter was born with this similar amputation to me, left actually right below elbow amputation, and which is like, unheard of. It's an anomaly. So it's a beautiful anomaly. And she's almost 3 now, and I'm like, as an amputee, I feel like the pressure's on. Like, oh, you better teach her all the right ways. But you know what? I'm doing the best that I can do. But yeah, no, it's just amazing watching her. But now I'm in that seat, and I'm parenting an amputee child. So I'm trying to navigate that and do what's best. But she's amazing, and I pretty much it'll probably even I'll probably be even harder on her. Like, if she tries to give me an excuse, it's like, who do you think you're talking to? Like, you don't think I know you can do that? Like, as a child, I was never. I should talk to my parents about this, but as far as I know, I never wanted to use my arm as an excuse as a kid, except for maybe the lawnmower. Like, I would go along with the lawnmower bit because I didn't want a lawnmower anyway. But um, but it's not like as an adult where I'm realizing, okay, yeah, now there are things that are difficult, and like especially when it comes to tendonitis and stuff, like shoveling snow, that kind of stuff. Like, my buddies always give me a hard time because I had ordered I'm kind of getting off topic, but I ordered a snow removal service for my driveway this year because it's so big. And after the first shovel, my tendonitis is shot. I'm just killing my arm, my one good arm. And all my buddies are razzing me that I like, oh my God, like it's not that bad. Like, you're lazy and this and that. Like, it's like, oh yeah, it says the 2-arm people. Like, what are you talking about? You don't even you have no idea. He's like, oh yeah, you know, you're
Those darn
only
normies.
those darn normies, man. Those normies think they understand. We don't. Anyway, I don't really know where I was going with that, but
I like it's very interesting too, James, that you bring up your daughter, because I think that part of the reason why my parents didn't let me use it as an excuse is because before I was born, my grandfather, who was the person who passed the farm to my father, lost most of his hand and his leg in an accident, and then healed and continued farming. So I think that was part of it. Whereas
Yeah.
my dad's like,
he's
my
a tough
dad's like,
man.
my dad just lost it traumatically, continued farming. What's your excuse? I don't think so. Like, you know, no.
I think my parents were a balance of each other, which makes sense because it's like totally their personalities. So my mother was very much the type of person to push me to do things and not push me, but encourage me, I guess is my way. Physically just shoving me into, sometimes maybe she had to, because I was a very shy child, believe it or not, but I was like, I am outspoken and everything in the way I am now because I was an amputee who was encouraged to do all those things. My personality otherwise was like shy, timid girl. But my mom always encouraged me to do public speaking, just to take on any opportunity that kind of came my way and to give everything a shot. So even if I struggled with it, she would encourage me to at least give it a try. And a great example is like baseball. My dad is a huge baseball fan, so all of his kids were in baseball. And also, I think it's one of the cheapest sports to sign your kids up in, or it was at the time. So I was put into baseball. I could hit as far to get a home run because my upper body strength was amazing. My legs could not carry me past first base. And every child was like, that's a target, right? Like they're kids. So they're just like, yeah, get her out. So my mom would encourage me like, okay, but you're part of a team. So you can't quit when I would want to. So she would encourage me to be like, well, you're a really good hitter. So why don't we see if you can hit and you have someone run for you?
Yeah, pinch
damn.
runner.
Yeah, like I could hit and they could get a home run because I was so good. And it was so hard for me. So I didn't continue the sport after that season, but she very much was like, you committed to a team. So we're going to finish it and work together as a team to get there. So she didn't let that stuff get in the way. But my dad has like awful anxiety. And so everything is risky and dangerous to let me do. So he was always scared or didn't want me doing things or driving or going anywhere if it was like 5 minutes away from the house because stranger danger. And rightfully so. Like as an adult, I do understand like they were being intelligent. But I had much stricter rules in some regards as far as compared to my siblings. I guess I could put it that way, right? But yeah, it's there was another point I was going to make. Where did it go?
Search your brain.
My sister actually had different rules than I did. So with an artificial arm, I wasn't allowed to fight my sister, but my sister could fight me. There was no rules about that. But I wasn't allowed.
You couldn't hit your sister with your prosthetic arm. Though.
Yes, that's exactly why I couldn't fight my sister.
Great rule.
This is crap.
That's unfair.
Honey, don't beat your sibling with a weapon.
In grade school, kids used to be like, in grade school as a boy, we always used to like fight and who would be the toughest in the class. But for me, it was like, well, you got to take your arm off if you're fighting us. I'm like, well, no, because that's my second arm in my beating club. What are you talking about? That's my. You got two arms. I got a weapon. That's how it goes. I got one arm and a weapon.
We don't condone violence on.
No, we don't. Absolutely not.
That
was the 90s, man. We already talked about the 90s. That's the 90s. That's what happens. Okay, it's 2000. The hell year is it? 2023? No, we don't fight
Nope,
anymore,
It's
kids.
not 2023,
not
James.
the year it is, but close.
2024. Happy New Year, guys.
Just so everyone knows, it's January 24th as we record this, so Happy New Year finally. And this won't come out for like
124.
this won't come out for like probably 2 months, so even funnier than that.
That's okay. I took all my Christmas stuff down.
What? Yeah.
I was just say I took all my Christmas stuff down. You're gonna have to cut that. I'm making more work for you.
I would just leave it. That's too bad. Another thing I was going to comment though, I know I had mentioned earlier, like my dad didn't come to these appointments or anything like that. But it was kind of just a mutual agreement my parents had on how they would like to tackle it. And I remember very specifically, I had surgery and it was shortly after I was at home and I was recovering. And so my mom had put my mattress in the living room on the floor to be able to like watch over me. And I had fallen asleep, but then kind of woke up to my parents talking. And my mom was bringing up to my dad that that I had mentioned and asked, like, why does dad never come to these things? And so I actually heard them have like a conversation thinking I was asleep. And it was actually, as an adult, I look back at that moment and I think it's so beautiful because my mom was bringing it to his attention. So he was aware I had mentioned it so that way he could come and have a conversation with me to let me know that he does care and he is he is supporting me, and it just looked different. And that was just how they had to navigate to do it financially. So it was just interesting how something that could often maybe cause an argument was something that like my parents so beautifully just navigated. Like, how are we going to share these tasks? But my dad, it was supportive, like in a whole other way, just more like physically.
Yeah, you have to understand that, like, I was
there's
gonna say, you
more
have to
than one
understand that.
way. Yeah, what it looks like. And I was blessed to have two parents that said, like, we need to work together as a team. And they, I think they did like a fantastic job. My dad did get to come to anything he could have came to, he did. But obviously a lot of doctor's appointments aren't happening on a weekend. But there was a time he did come out to one of our seminars where he got to actually experience us bonding together, and he only was there for a few hours, but it definitely it was like when I was like 20 years old too. So it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I wish he could have experienced this like his whole life, but I was glad he at least got to experience it once. So and actually I really wanted to do a video on my other channel back before my mom got sick. I had asked her if we could do a video together so we could talk to say, like, what is it like to be like on the other side, right? Like be the parent of an amputee. Unfortunately, we never got to film that, so I should force my dad into this. It will look a little different, of course, because he didn't do all the appointments and whatnot, but I think it'd still just be an interesting perspective to hear, right? And yeah,
I think it would be hilarious, number one, because I know
my dad is, yeah.
Also be really, really like, I'm thinking about it too, like be really hilarious to even see my dad like trying to talk like that kind of stuff too. Just like, I don't know. That's like how his reaction would be.
No, yeah, that's I had a light bulb moment. What I was gonna say was another bond that I'm gonna bring up on behalf of my mom was that my mom got to have best friends and bonds with other parents. And that's another thing that's so important. But my mom was friends with your parents. And that is super cool. It's not just us being friends together, but our parents all being friends together. And like my mom, my mom absolutely just adored your mom, James, like through and through. For her to get to even speak to her one last time was
Yeah,
just
that was very special.
extremely, extremely special.
My
And
mom was super happy to talk to her too, and just brought back like a lot of like memories, good, great memories, and it was emotional too that night. It was, yeah, she really enjoyed being able to talk to your mom, and because they had spent so many weekends together bonding, just like we always did at those weekends bonding. Our parents were also bonding, and that's what's I was gonna say earlier is that some people, parents, it was a lot of times it was the moms coming, but there were dads that would bring their kids out,
yep,
but usually guys are like not as chatty and not as social, and like that was kind of my dad. And I remember the one year that my dad came and the rest of the parents there on the team was all women, and
I
it was your
remember.
mom, and like all, so it was just my dad surrounded by all the moms, and he did a great job, man. Sometimes he's not the most social butterfly, but he did that for me, and so that was really special. And then when my mom would go, it would be like a party. She would be partying with the other moms, and not
Oh yeah, not
not
actual
not
partying, but
actual
mom
partying.
partying. Yeah,
A
yeah,
mom
yeah,
party, a mom party. So they would get together, and you would hear them howling from their hotel room down the hall, and
yeah,
you're like, "That's great. That's great that they can, because they're bonding too, man. Like they're talking about their experiences raising amputee kids,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
and
and
it helps them too, right? Like it's therapeutic for them to be able to go and discuss that as well. Like you have issues, and I'm experiencing that now with Ava, where I'm like, there's things that I'm starting to notice, and I'm like, because I've been through it, that's one thing, but I can only imagine someone that's completely new to it, how they would be feeling, and like just like with seeing, I really notice everything, obviously, having grown up as an amputee, but like I notice when other kids are staring at her, right? And then I even though I sometimes ask my parents, which is kind of hilarious. You were saying like you wanted to get together, you wanted to get that other side of the perspective where it's like, what was it like to raise an amputee child? Well, I'm like now dealing with that. I'm raising an amputee child, and a lot of times now I talk to my parents like, "Hey, did I do this as a little kid? Like, when did I like wear my arm?" And
yeah,
because Ava has her myoelectric arm now, but she is so stubborn, right? So it's like, "Hey, you want to put your arm on with daddy?" And she's like, "No, no, I don't want to do that." And it's just like you can't make it. You're like, "Okay, that's fine. You can wear it when you want." You got to make it a positive thing, obviously, right? But to each kid their own too. Like some kids want to use prosthetics, some kids don't. And what's funny is that I always get inspired by you, Jamie, because I know you as an amputee, you use your residual limb very well. Like you chose not to wear an artificial limb for quite a while, and you rocked it. And you use your residual limb, and you don't care what people think. And like I admire you for that, and the things that that sometimes you're able to use your residual limb, or as Ava and I call it, our nubbies. You're able to use your nubby for a lot of different things, right? And so I just let her do whatever she feels most comfortable with. I'm not pushing. I know that a prosthetic will really help, but I'm not going to push it on her. I'm going to let her choose her own path, and like it may have worked super well for me, and I wear my artificial arm or my myoelectric or my prosthesis, whatever you want to call it, all the time, but it might be different for her, right? So but it's
and stubbornness, I think, is a good thing. It's really it's determination, and I think
she
that's so important when you're an amputee to have that
you,
determination.
you want to know what's
We all have
crazy?
it.
At like two and a
Yeah,
half, she dresses
built
herself
in.
already. It's
Yeah.
crazy, man. She is so amazing. Like I'm watching her and I'm like, holy. I'm like, I definitely didn't. She's almost
James
already
still is
smarter than
impressing.
me. She's already smarter than me. She's 2.5. She's about to cross the barrier, but no.
Confirmed.
She's super
Just
smart,
kidding.
man. Like I know, yeah. But she's so like, for instance,
She's
like the kids at
special.
daycare, she's so independent, and our babysitter, lady at daycare, says compared to the other kids around her age, like they're not. She's so independent. She has to do everything herself, and like she has to get dressed herself, and she does, and it amazes me. I couldn't believe the first time. She's only about 2.5, where I laid her pajamas out, and I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and she had put her pajamas on right side, not even backwards. She put them on right, and I couldn't even. I don't even know how you did that. So I had to see. I had to watch her, and I'm like, what do you even need me for? You don't. Like you. I guess she forgot she didn't put her own diaper on, so she just put it on. I had to put her diaper on after that, but only if she could have put her own diaper on.
So
That's
close,
so
James. So close.
adorable.
I
That's
know, right?
amazing.
I love it.
Yeah. I think like, you know, that's so true. The bond that other parents have with other amputee parents, like that's, I know that my mom also loved that a lot. She
Yeah.
loved being able to talk to whoever and just, you know,
Oh,
and she could talk for forever about
yeah.
like anything
And
amputee
even
related.
though my mom hadn't talked to many parents in many years, she still spoke so highly and like as if it was yesterday and how much she loved them and was always like, oh, I should call them, I should reach out. And funny enough, James and I hadn't spoke in a while either, and the timing just kind of aligned. The last time we spoke, we reconnected, and then I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom really didn't have even like the miracle thing to me, James, and this should speak volumes to how that bond and what it means and what it does to our energy and our soul. At the time, my mom was very weak, so she barely could do maybe a 5-10 minute video call with her family. That's all she would ever have the energy for, if that. And she stayed on the phone with you guys for an hour and a half. And she was lively. Like in the whole time she was sick, I almost wish I got it on video, but I couldn't because I was like, that was the phone I was using, but to make the call happen. But for her to reconnect with you and your mom, and then also get to at least meet Ava, was just such a beautiful thing to watch her experience. And that energy, like that love, that bond came through the phone in a way that she was lively. It was the most I'd seen my mom be my mom the whole time. And yeah, and like no one would believe it. Afterwards, I told my dad, like, she was literally on the phone for an hour and a half. He's like, how is that even possible? So I think it just kind of speaks volumes to the level of energy our souls exchange and the bond that we're talking about, that it performs miracles. And yeah, to me that moment was
Super
such a
special.
blessing. Yeah, and I'll thank you for it forever and ever, because it obviously meant the world to me to see my mom be lifted up for even an hour and a half of her life.
Well,
So
that's
yeah,
amazing. That's awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to do that.
yeah, so cool. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about, bonds that we haven't really explored off the top of my head? I didn't really write anything down. I just thought this one was
I
easy.
just went off. I went from the heart on this one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
same. Yeah.
Maybe
Only a
when,
few tears. We got out of it okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely started to choke up a few times, but
Me too.
switch the
Me too.
topic. Yeah. Held it.
Down
I
the road,
noticed
I
the
will. I'm
opportunity.
sure I'll have a lot more to say about parenting an amputee child once Ava gets a little bit older.
Absolutely.
I'll probably have more to add in on this topic of parenting an amputee child.
I know. I'm excited to watch your relationship unfold and you two grow together.
Blossom.
Yes, beautiful.
isn't it?
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today in this episode. I know it might have not been as funny as we normally try to be, but hey, we're hitting all the topics. That's just how it works. If you're an amputee or have an amputee kid and you have anything you want to share about the bond that you have with your parent or child, we love to hear it below, or anything that we've missed on of other special bonds. And until next time, take care and make sure you like the video, subscribe, hit the bell so you get all notifications, and go like us on all the social media stuff and all that jazz. Thanks. Until next time.
Bye.
Peace.